Do you think you would ever consider trying to have Mueller removed, or have you pledged to just stay out of that?
Well, I hope he's treating everything fairly, and if he is, I'm going to be very happy, because when you talk about innocent, I am truly not involved in any form of collusion with Russia, believe me.
Will you pledge that you will not allow the Mueller investigation to be curbed or stopped?
Yeah, I've said all along, we need to let these career professionals do their jobs, see it through. So no, I don't think he should be stepping down. I don't think he should be fired. And the president's made it clear he's not going to do that.
House Speaker Paul Ryan addressing the resolution filed by 3 House Republicans calling on Special Counsel Robert Mueller to recuse himself in the Justice Department's probe of Russian interference in the 2016 election. Joining us now on set, columnist for the New York Times, Bret Stephens, and member of both the Armed Services and Judiciary Committees, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. Good to have you both this morning. Thank you.
Senator Blumenthal, a lot to...
Where to go first?
A lot to try to digest on Russia, but it's sort of like eating an elephant. There's just too much this weekend. Of course, I didn't mean, you know, like a Republican elephant.
No,
but there is so
I don't go along with eating elephant.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's just go a bite at a time. And we start with the Commerce Secretary, who was supposed to disclose any ties that may have been compromising with foreign powers. We now find out that he is linked financially to Vladimir Putin's son-in-law.
Vladimir Putin's son-in-law and a member of Vladimir Putin's inner circle who is under sanctions from the United States because he is involved in an energy company, and the sanctions are supposed to provide punishment against Russia for invading Ukraine and continuing to violate agreements. I feel misled, and the American people ought to feel misled. The Congress should feel misled, because Wilbur Ross came to our committee. He claimed to be divesting and selling all of these interests, and in fact, he has retained an ownership stake in a company, Navigator, that does business with this Russian energy giant. He probably makes more money from shipping gas for Russia than he does as Commerce Secretary when he goes to negotiate trade agreements.
Right.
Whose interest is he?
What are we supposed to make of all this, though, Bret? They all lie about Russia.
Well, that's just the thing.
He has the Attorney General got caught again.
My Lord.
None of them can fill out a disclosure form, remembering when they meet the Russian ambassador. Donald Trump himself lied. In fact, drafted the lie on Air Force One about the Don Jr. meeting in the office.
Yeah, this is like one of those pointillist paintings where every single point seems small, but it creates a picture. What's astonishing is just the ubiquity of the ties at every level of the Trump campaign, whether it was Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn. You mentioned Jeff Sessions, and you know, Russia is not a natural business partner. It's not like, say, you know, you can imagine France or Britain or Japan or China, major economies. Russia has an economy that's considerably smaller than Italy's. So it simply begs the question, why so many members of Trump's inner circle were interested in ties with Russia or had ties
That's
to
what people don't realize. The economy, at least, smaller than Italy's, smaller than Canada's. It's like it comes in around $1.2 trillion.
But this administration really has robust Russia ties.
All of them.
They just, it's really never ending.
Yeah.
Everyone has some kind of tie with Russia. Senator, my question for you, something I'm confused about how this works, and if you could explain. So Secretary Wilbur Ross, he had said that he would divest. He has not divested. What is the recourse for accountability there?
Great question. What I think should happen is the Inspector General of the Department of Commerce should investigate immediately. We ought to have hearings in the Commerce Committee. He came before us, and he apparently deliberately concealed these ownership interests. There ought to be hearings, and if he fails to provide a convincing and compelling explanation, he ought to resign. Because this stake in a company with such close ties to Putin's son-in-law, a Russian oligarch, subject to sanctions, raises profound questions about whether he can put the nation's interest above his own and whether he'll be beholden to that energy company if things go south in the energy industry, as they sometimes
So
do.
there are Trump supporters who will say they're just so focused on this, they're obsessing, Ari. How strong was that tie to the Putin-connected oil company? Give us a sense of the level of concern here.
Well, the best legal argument for Wilbur Ross is that he's loaded. And he owns a lot of stuff all over the place. And so
Right.
you're raising the defense.
Could he have forgotten?
I don't think he forgot. No, I think he knows what he has. I think he's a savvy businessman who has a clear sense of how this stuff works. And the reason they have these shell companies is not only sometimes for just general opacity, it's also for tax reasons. And the better they are at business.
How much money are we talking about in that connection?
Well, in Wilbur Ross's case, total we're talking billions, but I believe it's a several $100 million stake within these shell companies. But again, then when you go out to Navigator, it's stakes that go into it. It gets very wonky very quickly. You know, Bret said this is like a pointillist painting. The issue there is the problem with those kind of paintings, right, is a Monet can look very good far away, but when you get up real close in the museum, sometimes you realize the brushwork is shady and it doesn't look as good up close. And I think the question for the senator here is, up close, when you get in close to Navigator, what are you seeing, and are you concerned that these ties to Putin's son-in-law and these other individuals create leverage, create real conflicts for American policy, or this is just a lot of money sloppily sloshing around, but doesn't mean that the U.S. taxpayer should be worried?
There's a question of integrity in coming before the committee and claiming to divest 80 companies, including companies like this one, that have these kinds of ties. Second, there's a national security interest because sanctions are imposed against companies and individuals because they threaten our national interests. He's doing business with them. We're trying to persuade our European allies to stop buying Russian natural gas, while our Secretary of Commerce has these business ties to that company and to individuals in the Kremlin inner circle tied to Putin. So it undermines our national interests and it threatens, in my view, our national security.
And, you know, to meet this question, which is, I think, essential to all those Trump supporters, they ought to ask themselves, if this were President Clinton with the exact same set of scenarios, what would the GOP, what would the conservative view be? Would they say, oh, this is a big nothing burger that doesn't deserve investigation because the Secretary of Commerce is rich and can't possibly keep track of his investments? Is there nothing to the fact that a party platform was changed over the bizarre, minute point, or relatively minute point of arming the Ukrainians? Is there nothing to the fact that the former campaign manager had illicit ties and was susceptible to blackmail from a hostile foreign party? I can tell you
I can answer the question for you.
Please do.
1996, and you talked about it before, we Republicans, I think, were rightly outraged at Bill Clinton's attempt to get let's say, foreign interests
Chinese
involved,
money in the DNC.
Specifically China, and something that I talked about every time somebody asked me about Bill Clinton, I always said, well, you know, everybody focused on Monica. I thought you'd go back a couple of years earlier where one of the biggest contributors to the DNC actually tried to get a waiver to sell advanced missile technology to China.
Right.
And he got a no from the DOD, he got a no from the State Department, he got a no from everywhere. Finally, he went to his Commerce Secretary, Ron Brown, who signed off on it. We went crazy. The Wall Street Journal editorial page went crazy. The whole place blew up. Now it's Russia, want Russia. And speaking of the Wall Street Journal editorial page, a lot of Republicans, we'll talk about Republicans, are talking about Mueller. And we need to get rid of Mueller. A couple of Republicans did it the past couple of days. You wrote a column about just how, what a miserably bad argument, the sleazy case against Mueller's probe.
Well, I won't get into my former colleague's case, but look, one of the points that's constantly made is Fusion GPS, sleazy operator, they were paid by the DNC. But the only question that matters isn't whether Fusion is reputable or sleazy. The question that matters is whether Christopher Steele, the former MI6 agent, has a good reputation and whether his sources are good. And what's important is that first of all, Steele's reputation is impeccable. And secondly, many of his stories check out and checked out before they were later confirmed by U.S. intelligence.
At the beginning
by
the Free Beacon and by an unnamed Republican candidate.
Right.
And by a well-heeled Republican donor.
And a wealthy Republican donor. And then after Trump got the nomination, then it was the Democrats.
Joe, there's a really important point here while we're talking about the press. And that is, how do we know about all of this stuff relating to Wilbur Ross? How do we know about a lot of these Russian ties? It is because of investigative reporting.
Yeah.
NBC, the New York Times, reporting with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, breaking this story with leaks from Appleby, an offshore Bermuda-based law firm. Wilbur Ross's interests are also offshore, the Cayman Islands, where interests are typically based to avoid taxes and obscure ownership. The investigative reporting here has been superb, and that's why we have to resist the calls by the president himself to revoke licenses, to denounce journalists, because we know as much as we do simply because reporters are doing their job.
We ask questions on both sides, and the focus on this is real. I will say, just talking about this show and our approach to it, in the run-up to the campaign, we asked Trump question after question after question about Russia. We did not understand the answers. We also asked about whether or not the DNC was rigging the election. We asked about Debbie Wasserman Schultz and what was going on there. We asked if Bernie Sanders was being treated unfairly. We asked if Hillary Clinton had a message at all. And we focused a great deal on her emails. The balance is there in the coverage, at least here, and I think these questions are real.
We did cover her emails, you're saying.
Oh, we did. We here on Morning Joe did.
I remember covering her emails. Yeah.
Out in front on that.
Yeah, and look,
as someone who voted for her, this is called
Mika,
transparency.
You make such an important point, because the scrutiny comes with the turf. And if you have a president who thinks there shouldn't be scrutiny in law or journalism, that's not America.
And you talk to Democrats, they'll say that the press focused too much on the emails. You talk to Republicans, they'll say you guys were so one-sided against Trump.
Yeah, and that's what's really scary about what Trump does. I mean, I don't think he's going to withdraw anyone's license. He's not going to revoke the First Amendment, but he's going to create a climate of suspicion and loathing of the media that allows him to get away with what he's getting.
Already is. And you have a very provocative piece about repealing the Second Amendment. We're going to get to that when we come back. Stay with us.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.